Welcome back to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. Shabnam Palesa Mohammed standing in for Salailo on News and Views. Last night we hosted an event around the People's TRC, but specifically connecting the dots and joining solidarity between Palestine, Sudan, and Congo. Incredibly powerful event hosted on X. And one of our participants who had a bit of a technical glitch and could not join us, is with us today. Fahrie Hassan is a researcher, an activist with a science background and an expert in conflicts of interest. And so we've invited him to the show today. Fahrie, welcome to News and Views on Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good greetings to your listeners as well.
Thank you, Fahrie. It's a pity you couldn't join us last night, but we're really glad that you made time today. You did share some comments in our speakers chat as in an attempt to contribute to the conversation today, which is largely around the profiteers, right? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the profiteers? One of your comments is that Sudan, Congo, and Palestine is linked as a geopolitical threat to Israel geopolitically. Sudan is crucial as a potential threat due to its strategic location on the Red Sea and proximity to the Suez Canal and Bab el-Mandab Straits. They cannot allow a stable Islamic government who has anti-imperialist tendencies to exist in the region. Hence, they foment destabilization projects in the region. Talk to us more about this perspective and analysis.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Yes, look, as you just outlined there, my comments. To expand on that, Israel, in fact, has had a long-standing geopolitical goal in that region. In fact, even since the 1960s, of course, Egypt was one of the threats, and Sudan, of course, and Ethiopia, and that entire region happens to be a melting pot of different interest groups. And of course, of late, I'm sure people who have followed the Sudan crisis since the Darfur crisis I think that was in the 2000s, would remember the role of the USA, the role of, and more recently, the role of UAE, and of course Saudi Arabia as well. And of course there's Russian interests, there's Chinese interests. So there's various role players there, but particularly Israel. In fact, for those who have studied the region would remember that the UAE and Israel had gone into a military agreement. In fact, they've occupied, at present, they occupy the Socotra Islands off the coast of Somalia and to the south of Yemen. And the reason being, this is the reason they are giving, is to prevent the Iranian influence. Iran was using the maritime route in order to supply Yemen, and this was their way. This is the reason they are giving. But there's much more in-depth, Israel has got much more, as of course, as we well know, Israel and US interests coincide with each other. In fact, what had happened was that Israel, there's a report in was it in 2005, 2006, where Israel had supplied Sudan, and more recently as well, they had supplied Sudan, especially during the Darfur crisis, with surveillance technology. For instance, there's a person by the name of Ted Dillian, who was an ex-Israeli, was a spy, but was an ex-Israeli intelligence officer. He had created companies that via the EU would supply Sudan, and presently the RSF warlord Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, he is on record as having received this stash, or should I say, this is spyware. And if for people who have again followed the Sudan conflict between these Sudanese military and, of course, the RSF, in fact, it's become a drone warfare. So they've been supplying. Israel has been supplying them with this technology, right? And of course, the drones are also supplied from these quarters. So what has happened? There's been a confluence of interest. The UAE, their interest is that for those who visit Dubai and these Abu Dhabi and that region, your gold that you go purchase there is in fact conflict gold. Because the UAE has a long-standing agreement with Hamidati. That's the nickname of Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, right? So they have got agreement with Hamidati. Hamidati has secured all the gold mines in the Darfur region, and he's the from that proceeds, he's become a billionaire basically out of these proceeds. And this is one of the souks. Whoever goes to the souks in UAE and Dubai, you'll find conflict gold there. In fact, I would call it genocide gold. That's probably a better description. Because
if I can just come in there, Fahrie, I'm hearing that echo again, Polani. I think it's fixed now. So thank you, my brother. So Fahrie, certainly following the money is critical in understanding that Palestine, Sudan, and Congo have common enemies. So Congo's blood diamonds feeding the genocide in Palestine, weapons supplied to Sudan by the Zionist entity and UAE. And at the same time, our own country is still supplying coal that is fueling the genocide in Palestine. And so therefore, part of your role in the People's TRC is to highlight the conflicts of interest, who benefits and how. How do you see that playing out in your testimony as part of the People's TRC as an expert in this area?
Well, yes, of course, you mentioned South Africa. I mean, South Africa is playing a very hypocritical role. While on the one side, they are feigning, they took Israelis to the ICJ and got the ICJ to a provisional genocide claim against them. And they're riding on the back of this. I argue that this was actually a ploy by the ANC to get votes locally, to come across, because it was popular. I think it was a popular decision, because the world was changing against Israel because of the genocide. This is one of the reasons South Africa uses. While South Africa was providing throughout the genocide that was taking place in Gaza, South Africa was supplying coal. And by the way, it's not just coal, by the way. South Africa is dealing in arms as well, arms sales to the genocidal state of, and so we must be very clear about South Africa's complicit role and dual role that they are playing. So and then if you extend that, what you were saying, I'm not sure if people are aware that there's an entity called Palantir, right? So this company run by or founded by Peter Thiel, one of the main backers of Trump, and Alex Karp, the CEO, they are on record as having said that they stand with Israel. And how do they stand with Israel? Palantir is an AI-driven. They supply software such as Lavender, Where Daddy, and so to the IDF. And this is used to track individuals via their cell phone data, via their internet searches, and biometrics, and so on, etc. This then get crunched, and this information is fed to the drone that is sent. And this can be done within 20, 30 seconds. supply this information to the drone, the IDF, of course, and that is how they target. This is how why we have now more than what some claim more than 100,000 dead in Gaza, and this is the and lo and behold, Palantir has also the name of Palantir has also come up in the Sudan crisis. As well as Rwanda crisis, by the way, in the M23. What has been reported is that the M23 rebels, backed by Paul Kagame's Rwandan government, is supplying them also with drone technology and so on via the Palantir. So there is certainly links. You can see how the links between the various conflicts is clearly being driven by certain interests. The fact that, seeing that we mentioned Rwanda, Paul Kagame just in 2023, 2024, I think it was last year, Paul Kagame addressed IPAC in America, for God's sake, in America. So what does that tell you? The largest lobby in the U.S., the U.S. Senate, Paul Kagame was addressing it and thanking them for their support. So there's a clear link between the Rwandan Patriotic Front, or at least which became the Rwandan government, the Israeli interests in that region, as well as supplying Hemedti, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, the RSF, with these drone technologies. So you can see how the confluence of interests all come to. Oh, by the way, we shouldn't leave Saudi Arabia out of this, because Saudi Arabia has got agreement with both interests. They got an agreement with Burhan, Commander Burhan of the Sudanese military, who's of course heading the government at the moment in Sudan, as well as they got an agreement with Dagalo, the RSF warlord. So you can, and what is Saudi Arabia's in? Also gold, and then we shouldn't also neglect the role of entities like Coca-Cola and entities like Nestle and all these. Why do I say this? I don't know if people are aware that gum arabic, one of the products that is used in Coca-Cola drink beverages, and that is used in chocolates, by chocolatiers and so on. Sudan has virtually got a monopoly, a world monopoly on gum arabic. So you can see also the role of corporations, in fueling this, and to destabilize. But just to come back to the Israeli, the geopolitical interests of, as you in the introduction you said, of Israel is to destabilize that region, to make sure, like they did in Yemen, using Saudi Arabia as a proxy. For those who remember the Saudi Arabia war on Yemen, that terrible war, Saudi Arabia was willingly being used as a proxy by the United States and Israel in order to destabilize. And as everybody know now, in Yemen, they've split the country basically into three entities. One entity, the Houthis, and then of course the de facto government supported by the West, and then of course you have the region supported by the UAE and Saudi Arabia and so on. The same playbook is being played out in Sudan. They want to balkanize. They effectively want to balkanize Sudan, put in warlords and put in and reduce that country to a much like Libya, reduce it into a cesspool of destruction and destabilization, because they don't want an Islamic government that has got anti-West, because for various reasons, right? One, that is probably the Red Sea and the Suez Canal and of the Bab el-Mandab Straits is probably for the West, in the EU at least, that is the economic hub. That region is so crucial to Western economic interests that they will do everything to secure that, and therefore they cannot. So this is why you would find that that region is probably the most militarized region in the world. In fact, Djibouti, the way Djibouti, the country to the north of Somalia, is surviving, is that they are getting rental from all countries who has a military base in the country, and of course. This was Saudi Arabia's aim as well, by the way. Saudi Arabia originally, when they had an agreement with Omar al-Bashir, Saudi Arabia wanted to have a military base in one of the ports of, and of course, everyone else is now trying to get the military. I just want to.
We're going to have to take an ad break and come back to continue our conversation with a few minutes left and so much important information to share that you will also be sharing at the People's TRC. But we'll come back after the break.
Perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together. It could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
When you give water, you bring life to drought-affected communities, providing fresh water for drinking, cleaning, and growing. Your support helps Islamic Relief implement water, sanitation, and hygiene projects, providing clean water to communities around the world. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078 786 1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Welcome back to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. You're on News and Views with Shabnam Palesa Mohammed, and we're with our last guest, who you will see on the poster there, top right, Fahrie Hassan, activist, analyst, and conflicts of interest researcher, in an event we hosted last night on X called Solidarity, Connecting Congo, Sudan, and Palestine, Why the People's TRC Matters, hosted by the Pan-African Unity Speakers Forum and a number of its partners at the bottom of your screen. Really a fantastic event, painful at times, but extremely powerful in building our bonds of solidarity towards liberation. particularly for the Global South. Let's bring Fahrie Hassan back on screen. We've got about 2 minutes more with him before we need to close the conversation today. Fahrie, of course, we're going to continue having conversations with you. Your expertise is extremely important as part of the people's TRC, and we certainly welcome your contribution to that. So let me ask you the last question, Fahrie. I'm not sure how much of last night's conversation you heard, the one held on X, but certainly the feedback that we were getting from the Sudanese and the Congolese sisters who participated is this immense sense of gratitude at being heard, and a process that is outside of government, that is the people's TRC, in which we will hear testimonies from victims or survivors, allies, experts, whistleblowers, and perpetrators, but also engage in a process of dialogue with each other to find solutions towards the challenges and struggles we face. Thirdly, of course, trauma therapy, extremely important. And last but not least, the role of the arts as part of the people's TRC. In your perspective, how important is the people's TRC, especially because it's going to highlight those who profiteer from division, from chaos, and from suffering?
Yes, thank you for that, and certainly I want to fully back as well as call upon people to support the People's Truth and Restoration Commission, because the importance of this cannot be overstressed, and you mentioned quite a few. First of all, because in places such as Sudan and Gaza, of course, and we should also include Somalia in this, DRC and so on, because clearly what has happened is that people under fire and under genocidal conditions need to vent and speak about the trauma, as you mentioned, and it's only through the oral stories of people who have suffered genocide that we can give them a outlet for this, and for the world to hear from the ground, you see. And then, of course, I mean, the other important aspect of the TRC is, one of the flaw, South Africa, of course, had the TRC, but it was very flawed in that one of the things that was never realized, well, at least several things were never realized, but one is a restoration, to restore. I mean, if you remember, the reparations fell flat. And I think that is one of the issues that should really be addressed. And in fact, this is where government should get involved. Reparations for the victims of the trauma and the genocide, and that should be addressed. And how we should address that will depend on how the organizers and the TRC, the People's TRC, should come up with a plan for that. And then, of course, I mean, the perpetrators, the genociders, they should be given an opportunity. And I don't think that's also another flaw of the South African, the TRC that we had here. One of the flaws that the genociders were only a few of them came forward, and that we should find mechanisms how to get the people to hear how the genociders, I mean, I think it's important to hear their side of the story, and while the People's TRC might not have punitive or to get governments to prosecute these people, but I think here the People's TRC should really be working hand in glove with the ICC, for instance, and I think this is a food for thought, and I think we should really. So just in closing, I think I would say that I'm fully in support of the People's TRC, and I pray that the people embrace this idea, because this is the only way I feel in this totalitarian or genocidal way of the Western world, and what's happening. I mean, if we take into account the crisis in Ukraine, the crisis in Venezuela, and all over the world now, this is actually a call to reason. I think that the TRC would be a call to reason for all activists and people who love truth.
Absolutely.
To
Fahrie, we're going
come
to have to wrap up there. Unfortunately, we could talk with you forever. The PTRC is also an act of radical hope, so we hope to engage with you further as we build this people-powered movement, really. But thank you for joining us on Salam Media today. Assalamu alaikum. Wonderful joining us there, Fahrie Hassan. It's been an excellent show. We're very grateful to all of the participants for joining us on today's show. And they include Pravisha Dhanapal, CEO of Lifeline Durban, followed by Mariam Juma Karikchi, talking about the People's TRC and White Matters. Third, Tumi Sol, founder of Country Duty, talking about AfriForum imperialism and the Cape Exit agenda. And of course, Fahrie Hassan, talking about who benefits from the chaos, suffering, and division in our world, which we'll be talking about more as part of the People's TRC. Now, apparently, we're going to close with the fired up clip. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but in anticipation of that, I do want to highlight someone who we need to pray for, to make a dua for, who is not feeling very well currently, requesting dua shifa from the listeners for Haji Suleiman Sari Asmal of Verulam, admitted in ICU and receiving treatment. May the Almighty grant him healing and shifa, and grant the family grace and strength at this time. We also want to highlight the emergency call out for political prisoners outside the British Council, 11 a.m. tomorrow, confronting the British government for their complicity in genocide. Don't let the Palestine Action hunger strikers die. The UK government must meet these 5 reasonable demands: bail for all accused, end censorship of prisoners, the right to a fair trial, unban Palestine Action, and the closure of Albert systems in the UK and around the world. This is an important call given the UK's government's long and bloody history of colonization and crimes against humanity. It's time that we're held accountable. So let's stand with these young people as they do what is right by humanity. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I think Kolani will lead us into the fired up clip. I'm very curious to hear and see what that's all about. Thank you for joining us. I'll be on again tomorrow and Wednesday, standing in for Salailo on News and Views. This has been Salam Media with Shabnam Palesa Mohammed. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.